Shanghai GDG is a very interesting developer community.
I'm glad somebody has asked this question.
This is where the magic happens.
This is primarily a question and answer show. So if any of you out there would like to ask questions.
All right, well, welcome. Hey, so I'm Pete LePage, and welcome to the first of a series of Chrome mobile hangouts. With me here, we've got Boris. I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm Boris. We're both from Chrome Developer Relations, so mostly working on mobile these days.
Yeah. So back at Google I/O, Chrome for Android and Chrome for iOS became available, and we're really excited about both of those because it really brings a great browser to the mobile environments. So today we want to talk about a couple of things that we think is pretty interesting. Boris is going to start off talking a little bit about high DPI stuff. So if you've been building web applications or websites and you've used them on either one of the new MacBooks that have Retina display or on an iPad 3, you've seen the high DPI stuff, and the web looks a little bit different if you're using one of those devices than something else.
Right.
And then I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the debugging tools that you can use on Chrome for Android when building these sites.
Cool.
And then we'll take some of your questions through the moderator. So, Boris, I'll pass it over to you. You just had
Sounds
an
good.
article about high DPI
We
coming.
published an article this morning.
Cool.
HTML5 rocks. Many thanks to Alex, who stayed up late in Sydney to get
Awesome.
that up. So I just want to sort of be more specific here. And the high DPI problem doesn't just apply to iPads and MacBook Pros with the new Retina displays. It's actually a general problem on the web. There's a lot of devices that now have device pixel ratios of greater than 1. I'll talk a little bit more about what that means in a second, but it's an Android issue, it's a Windows Phone 8 issue, and it's a iPhone issue and iPad issue. So this high DPI question needs to be solved generally on the web, and is being worked on generally. So it's not like there's this big thing about Retina displays, but that's just branding, right?
Okay. So, and it's also more than just, okay, say I've got this high DPI image or a regular, but there's also something about choosing images based on screen size, too, in there.
Yeah, it gets a little complicated, actually. Because, basically what you want to do is you want to serve the best quality image as quickly as possible.
Right.
But the thing is, what quality means sort of depends, right?
Okay.
So you have just pure resolution, like crispness of the pixels.
Right.
And then you have things like, for a small display, right, you want to show maybe a different image than for a large display. Like, say you have Obama speaking at some conference or something like that. Maybe if you have a large screen, you'll show the pedestal, you'll show Obama's face as well. But on a small screen, you might just show his face because there's not much real estate. Yeah,
I think in your article that was just published, and we can put the link up for that, but in that article, if you scroll down, you actually have a really good visual description of that, where in the foreground, you've got person and all of the background image, like where they're standing, where they're talking. But on a small screen display, that person just gets lost, right?
Right.
And so you don't want to show all of that.
Right. I actually don't have that in the article, but the article more focuses on just the resolution aspect.
Okay. Sorry, I might be thinking of
something else.
Different article. All right.
Yeah, another article I'm sure had that. I know the exact image actually you're talking about. But anyway, so the way this whole resolution aspect works, if we ignore the art direction bits, it's sort of complicated on the web because there's so many different kinds of browsers out there and so many different devices.
Right.
Like on iOS, for example, you just have 1x and 2x displays.
Okay, so when you're talking about 1x and 2x, what does that mean? Like, can you...
Sure. So basically, a 1x image. Let's talk about displays first. A 1x display has pixel density. That's whatever the display's pixel density is.
Okay, so if I've got
for an iPhone, the pixel density of the iPhone 3G, the pre-4 one, is 163.
Okay.
Actually.
So that's the pixel density. So in 1 inch, there's about 163 pixels.
Exactly 163.
Okay.
Well, about on average.
Okay. All right.
So with a 2x display,
Yeah.
there's twice as many pixels in the same space.
So roughly, there's like 320 pixels in an inch.
326. So that's
Okay.
that's the 2x display of a iPhone.
Okay.
Of course, the 1x, the actual number of pixels depends on what the initial 1x was.
Okay.
So like an iPad is slightly less dense.
Right.
A MacBook Pro is even less dense.
Okay.
But the 2x equivalents are double.
Okay. All right.
So that's the way that works. Makes it really simple for Mac or Apple developers to solve this problem.
Okay.
Android also has a similar concept, but because of the variable display densities,
Okay.
it varies from, there's no 2x notion. So you sort of need to cover the whole gamut of possibilities.
So does that mean that like it might be 1.5 or 1.3 or 1.
Exactly.
It could be anywhere in that number. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I mean, we're probably going to start seeing greater than 2x as well.
All right.
Going forward from, well, maybe not from Apple. I can't speculate there. But it's certainly likely to increase to up to the point where you can't see any pixels anymore.
That would be really cool. That would be really neat.
We're getting close already.
Okay.
It's sort of, you have to look really hard
Yeah.
to find them.
Yeah.
So that's sort of the story. Android solves the problem by letting you provide like 4 different images.
Okay.
So you have like a very small, medium,
Right.
big-ish, and extra,
Now this is
extra large.
if you're doing an Android
native
application.
Right.
Okay. So that doesn't really apply for web
No,
developers.
no, no.
Then. Okay.
This is just, I'm trying to like set
the stage.
Set
Okay.
the stage here.
All right.
And on the web, the whole problem reduces to CSS scaled pixels.
Okay.
So the way that works is essentially the spec provides an angular size. The spec defines pixels to be an angular unit.
Okay.
It's a little confusing, but you should read the article. I think it explains it pretty
All right.
well. The basic idea, though, is a pixel is a certain angle. So depending on how close or how far you
so
are.
when I read it, I was trying to figure out, okay, an angle to me is sort of this way, but it's more the angle this way coming out of the screen at you.
It's your viewing angle, actually,
Oh,
of the
okay.
screen.
Okay.
So if the screen is in front of me, then I have a certain viewing angle.
Okay.
And what this means is basically the pixel's physical size depends on how far the screen is from me.
Okay.
So this is the spec definition.
Now, this gets kind of confusing and a pain for developers. Do you
Sort
think?
of.
Okay.
I think in practice it's a lot simpler.
Good. All right.
So the way this works, the spec sets this angular pixel,
Okay.
and then a browser vendor can assign the device pixel ratio,
Right.
which scales virtual pixels into this physical pixel.
Okay.
So essentially what device pixel ratio does is it scales every CSS pixel to the
Okay.
physical size.
All right.
And at that point, you basically don't even need to know what the spec says. You just need to,
I like.
the only thing,
I like that because
Right.
this is sounding more complex than I think it should be.
right.
But-
with device pixel ratio, you kind of abstract yourself from the
Okay.
gory details of the spec, which I go
Cool.
into if you're interested. Take a look at the
Yeah.
article.
All right.
There's even a little diagram to illustrate that. But yeah, basically, the pixels are scaled,
Okay.
but you still have the problem of essentially if you're scaling pixels, then your images are being scaled, right?
Right.
And if you scale images to be large, then suddenly you have really like crappy looking
Lower quality. Yeah.
images.
Okay.
So the question then is, how do you serve the right size of image?
Right.
And there's many ways.
Okay.
So I mean, one solution is you just serve high DPI images everywhere.
Yeah. And that's fantastic for anybody who's on a high speed, dedicated internet connection who doesn't care about their bandwidth, which is probably not everybody.
Yeah.
In fact, I
it's-
guarantee it's not everybody. Right?
Especially on mobile,
Yeah.
things are really, well, you have slow speeds, you have very high latency generally
Yep.
from 3G connections, even 4G connections. Essentially, latency isn't really changing because it's constrained by distance from cell tower.
Right, so the further I am from cell tower, the longer it's going to take for the radio signal to come. So it doesn't matter how fast I can get everything.
Right.
It's still going to take a little bit of time
Yeah,
for the...
yeah.
All right.
So there's all these sort of different constraints in mobile. So anyway, there's multiple solutions.
All right.
You can do this in JavaScript.
Okay.
And there's a list of there's a whole spreadsheet that someone put together
Oh,
of
cool.
all the JavaScript
Libraries?
image solutions,
Okay.
high DPI image solutions. And there's at least 30.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
it's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
There's also CSS approaches. So
Okay.
with CSS media queries, what you can do now is you can select the proper image. Well, essentially what you do is you set a media query based on the
It's the
device
device pixel.
DPI.
Or device
so
DPI or
device
pixel?
pixel ratio.
Okay. So like at the top, I'd say, hey, here's my media query or my CSS, and I specify a media query in there, and I say device pixel ratio of between 1 and 1.5. And then I might do another one for 1.5 to bigger, and that would give me the high ones.
Exactly.
Now, that's only going to do images if they're in a background for my
Yeah.
style sheet, or
Right.
if they're maybe specified as a background on a div or something like that, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
So with media queries, you're constrained to CSS properties
Okay.
and not content images.
Yeah.
So you can't set the image source with a media query.
Okay, so I can't use that for, say, hey, I want to put an image here, and this is my image of a newspaper article or something like that. But
Well,
it'll
you
work.
you sort of can. I mean, you can just create a div,
Yep.
set the background image, and
Okay.
pretend it was a content image.
Right.
And there's even you can even set.
But then I'd have to generate that CSS every time, depending on if the image is dynamic. So I'm thinking like a
Sure.
news website
Yeah.
or something like that. If the image is dynamic, I'm going to have to do that.
Right. You can still do that with JavaScript. It's not a problem.
Oh, yeah, that's a fair point. That's a
So-
good point. Okay.
I mean, you can set the background images dynamically.
Right. Okay.
Anyway, so there's JavaScript, CSS. You can do this on the server as well.
Right. Yep.
So just using the user agent, which is all
Right.
we have on the server, unfortunately. You simply just serve the high DPI image if necessary.
Right. So you could say, oh, this particular device I know is a high DPI device, so I want to serve the high DPI image.
Yeah.
Now, that's going to work great for a known set of devices. But say, for example, some brand new company goes and ships the new coolest tablet ever, and it's got a device pixel ratio of 4.
Yeah.
On day one, I'm probably screwed.
Well, you're not screwed
If
in
I
the
use
sense of...
if I use the server side and I don't know about it.
Sure. I mean, you should be... if you're using the server side and doing a robust solution, you're
Yeah.
probably using a device database like
Oh,
Whirlpool
yeah.
or...
Okay.
What's the other one? Device Atlas, one
Okay.
of those.
Yep.
So there you would just update your database, and
Right.
hopefully they would be
They'll
up to date with
provide
it.
that info. Okay.
But that's sort of theoretical. So
Okay.
yeah, there's definitely drawbacks,
Okay.
and if you'll need a custom server solution
Yeah.
to do this, etc. So the real solution to this problem is to use things that are built into the browser,
That's pretty much always a safe thing to do.
right? Because there's drawbacks to every other approach.
Yeah.
And of course, the drawback here is it's not implemented everywhere.
Okay. So these are specs that are still sort of.
Yeah, they're
Are
sort
they?
of in
Would
progress.
you call them release candidate, or are we still sort of?
It's hard to speculate about that.
Okay.
I mean, they're both specs that are, somewhat in progress.
Yeah.
But certainly we will have some image selection, image set approach to, for both content images, like setting image source,
Okay.
and for background images.
Okay.
So the way with background images right now, it's with image set,
Okay.
and I talk about it in some detail in my article. But essentially, what you're saying is you specify multiple images,
All right.
and you say what the xity is, like 1x, 1.5x,
Okay.
etc.
So the device pixel ratio, you say 1 point
Yeah.
whatever. Okay.
So you provide multiple of these images,
Okay.
and then the browser selects which one to load for
So
you.
the browser's smart enough to go, oh, okay, we want to grab this. Okay.
And it's more of a guide. So one of the drawbacks with CSS using media queries
Yeah.
is your device pixel ratio may be 2, but you may be on a very slow link, for example.
Right.
Then you're
so
downloading a huge image on
Yeah.
your Edge connection, and that's a bad user experience. So if the browser can make that call for you,
We definitely want the browser to do
we
that.
want to do that. So I think that's the main benefit of building it directly into the browser.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's image set for CSS.
So that's image set. So I would say image colon and then like provide a set. Or
image-
that's
it-
I guess
it's
it's in
a-
the article.
It's in the article, but it's essentially a custom CSS function
Okay.
with its own syntax, etc.
Okay.
And it's right now it's in WebKit only. So prefix
So-
with the -WebKit
So-
prefix, and it's available in Safari 6 and Chrome, I think.
Okay. Yeah, I think that sounds
definitely
right.
in the Canary.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So
So it's not available, say, on Chrome for Android yet.
not yet.
Okay. But something that
But it will be.
we hope to see coming in the near
Yeah.
future. Okay.
And I believe it may be, well, it's likely to be in the next versions of both
Okay.
Chrome for Android and probably mobile Safari as well.
Okay. So we should keep an eye out for that. Hopefully it'll be in the next version. Cool.
Yep. And of course, for content images, we have a similar thing called
Okay.
source set.
All right.
So you have image source and you have image source set.
So I'd say image source, and I provide the normal one so that
Right.
legacy browsers or
Right.
normal browsers will just pick that up. But then I'd say source set,
Source set, yeah.
and that's still an attribute within the image element, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Okay.
So it's sort of a little more complex than image set, the
Okay.
CSS version.
Okay.
And you can specify additional things like width and height
Oh,
of
interesting.
the viewport.
Of the viewport.
So
Okay.
again, this gets a little more complicated, and in my personal opinion, both image set and source set should have the same syntax. They currently don't.
Okay.
The other thing to know with source set is it's not available anywhere. There is no implementation.
Ah. All right. So it's cool, but we can't use it yet.
It's cool,
Okay.
and we can use it with a polyfill that I wrote,
All
but
right.
it's not available in any browser. So I would say it's far less mature than image set,
Okay.
and likely to change more as well.
Okay.
So,
So the link to your
a heads up.
polyfill is in that article. So if people go have a look at that article, they can get that link, correct?
Correct.
All right.
So anyway, take a look at the article, try the polyfill, let me know what you think.
All right. So what would you say? I want to make my website work best now. What's the best thing I can do to make sure that I'm
so
providing the
I
best
think
experience?
the best thing you can do now sort of depends on what your target is, who your
Okay.
clients are, etc.
Yep.
If you're targeting legacy browsers,
Yep.
you probably want to use something less ambitious than image set and source set,
Okay.
because you're just going to end up having to polyfill everything.
Right. Okay.
So if you're doing that, fall back to JavaScript, see if media queries are supported.
Okay.
Go do something less ambitious.
All right.
However, if you're on the bleeding edge,
If you want to be sort of on the cutting edge.
you should probably be using image set and source set.
Okay.
Yeah. And
And seeing
definitely
that-
image set, maybe not source set.
All right.
So
Cool. All right. Well, hopefully that's a good intro to this. This is something I think it's a little bit complex right now. It's a little bit more fun than it should be, and fun is a subjective thing, but will become easier in the future. This is something that I think a lot of browser vendors are looking at and trying to figure out, because we really want to make sure that it's easy for you, and as developers, it should be mostly transparent, right? It should be something that you go, all right, here's my image, and maybe I need a high DPI or low. Actually, one that you didn't mention, I think, I can't remember if you mentioned it in your article, but image formats. There are some image formats that provide that, but it doesn't stop downloading once it hits the...
Right. So one of the things I discuss, as you mentioned, are the progressive image formats. So if you remember in the old days when GIFs were very popular on the internet,
Yep.
you could see this progressive loading. So first you'd get a kind of a
Very
pixelated
pixelated
thing, and then it would refine itself.
Yep.
Instead of the cascade
Yeah.
of loading. So most image formats actually have this ability,
Okay.
and a lot of the time, if you encode it that way, it's actually smaller.
Oh.
In some cases, it's larger.
Okay.
So I talk about that. But you might think that, hey, you can just do this and then cut off the connection.
Yeah.
Once like you know that getting more data isn't going to improve the quality of the image.
Yeah.
The thing with that is, especially on mobile, you don't really want to kill connections. The reason you don't want to kill connections is because now you need to respawn a new connection.
Right.
And that incurs latency overhead, which can be like a whole second in many cases. So one workaround could be to use HTTP range, which essentially says, get me this chunk in the in like some image.
Yeah.
So what you might do is you might get the head of an image,
right, so
see the size,
yeah.
estimate how much data you need, get the range, and then you don't actually have to kill the request.
Ah.
But the trouble is nobody supports range on the server.
Ah,
basically.
okay. Yeah.
So anyway, more details, check out the article.
Yeah. It's a great article. It's really worthwhile. There's a lot of great images.
Thanks, Pete.
I liked it. So.
Anyway,
cool.
Let's talk about some debugging
Cool.
stuff.
All right. Well, I'm going to grab my laptop here because I want to talk about some of the debugging tools that Chrome has to offer as you're building websites and web applications. So I'm just going to bring up Chrome, and I want to show you a couple of the emulation tools that are available to you, and then I'll jump into some of the debugging tools. So I've got Chrome up. I'm running Chrome Beta on this, but in addition to Chrome Beta, this is also available in Chrome Stable. It's also available in Chrome Dev, and there's a couple other ones. I'm going to take a sec here. All right. Apparently we're getting some flicker, so let's try and see if I can unflicker a little bit. No. All right. All right. So do you want to talk
Sure,
about...
yeah. So basically there's multiple kinds of approaches you can take to debugging. The simplest, probably, if you're developing a mobile app and don't really want to deal with your Android device plugged in via USB and doing remote debugging, the other approach is to emulate some mobile features that are available in Chrome for Android, but do it directly on your desktop Chrome. So in the dev tools, as Pete started saying, there's a bunch of these pretty nifty features that let you essentially constrain your Chrome browser in ways that are similar to the constraints that you'll find on mobile devices.
All right, so we've got this up. So I'm going to bring up the Chrome dev tool. So I just brought them up on my new tab page. But if you click,
maybe you can bump the size up. Command plus.
Command plus. There we go. Yeah.
Nice.
So I clicked on the settings guy here, and that brings up my settings. Now, things look a little bit weird right now because I bumped the size up, but there's a couple of things that pop up here that are really interesting. Let me just come down a little bit in size. So the first one is override user agent, override device metrics, and emulate touch events. So by going and turning on the override user agent, I can go in and I can choose from different user agents. So I can specify, hey, I want to emulate a Galaxy Nexus or an iPhone or an iPad. So if I choose to emulate the Galaxy Nexus, sure enough, it goes and sets my user agent string to be the right user agent string. But it also goes and turns on this override device metrics and sets my screen resolution for 720 by 1280.
Awesome.
So it actually says, hey, this is what my screen resolution is. So now, if I go down here and I open up google.com, sure enough, I get the experience as I would see it on a mobile device.
So it's both the user agent and the device size constraints.
Exactly. So as far as Google's concerned, I'm reporting as this device, and as well, I'm also getting the right screen resolution.
Awesome.
So I'm kind of faking out this. Now, there's a couple of things that I do lose here that we don't get. One of the things we talked about earlier was the device pixel ratio, right? So I'm not going to get in if there's any kind of device pixel ratio that's beyond the normal. I'm not going to get that.
That's actually on the horizon.
Cool.
So it may be coming soon.
All right.
Definitely talk to some people about it.
Yeah,
Seems
I know
like a very useful feature.
Yeah, it's something we definitely asked for, and we've gone in and said, hey, we think this is really important.
Right.
I had checked this morning to see if it was in Canary or Chromium, and it wasn't there
Not yet.
So fingers crossed that we'll get that kind of soon, because that would be really useful. It's one of those things that I think will help. Now, one thing that sort of caught me a couple of times, so I go to start using this. This may catch you. So in this particular environment, my screen's set up for 1080 pixels high. And you'll notice that when, I'm just going to bring this up again so that we can see this. Oh, that wasn't what I wanted. Here we go. There we go. So I'm going to bring this up. Notice my screen resolution is set for 1280, so it's a little bit bigger than my screen. So the browser creates that space down below.
Yeah.
Now, what's happening, say for example, I want to see this whole thing. I want to get rid of this. If I go close this right now, I actually, it looks like we fixed this. No, we didn't.
No, it reverted back.
Yeah, it reverted back.
Right.
So now what's happened is my screen size goes back to normal.
Right.
Right?
So you need to have DevTools open for the screen size effect.
So the DevTools need to stay open if you want to do that. Now, there's two things you can do there. You can just sort of go and shrink these guys really, really, really tiny. Or the other one you can do is just undock them and move them sort of over here. And that's probably the easier thing to do, because now you can actually go and
There's actually a third thing you can do.
Oh, okay, cool.
In Canary.
Ooh, all right. Let me bring up Canary.
Yeah.
Now, I think I had some fun with Canary this morning in that it wouldn't bring up the... Yeah, it won't bring up my
don't worry
settings.
about that.
Okay, cool.
But if you click on that thing for a while,
Oh,
and then go like that,
I can...
boom, dock to right.
Nice.
So that's a pretty cool feature.
So that's something we can probably expect to see in a future version of Chrome.
Yeah, I think it's probably in beta by now. I'm not sure.
Well, let's find out.
Is this beta?
This is beta.
Oh, I see.
So it's
Okay.
not
Then
it's
it's
not
there
in
yet.
beta yet. So maybe it's in dev.
Yeah, it could be. It'll trickle down eventually.
Yeah.
It's a very useful feature.
It really is. It's one of those things that to be able to go and do this. So not only do you get your user agent override so that you can go and specify, if you do want to specify a specific user agent, you can do that, because right now they only have Android 4.0. And do you remember, is this the Android browser user agent, or is this the, let's see.
Good question. I think it's the Android browser user agent.
Yeah, that looks like the Android browser
There's no
user agent.
Chrome in that string,
Yeah.
so I think there's an open request to get Chrome user agents in there.
Yeah.
Chrome for Android and Chrome for iOS.
Yep.
But not quite yet.
It's not there
Either
yet.
way, yeah, as you're saying, you can paste in anything you like. You can even paste in Googlebot if you want to see how Googlebot crawls.
Oh yeah, that's a good point too. So if you want to go look up the user agent strings, if you just look up Chrome mobile UA string, just Google that, you'll come across the documentation.
You should get
there.
to the developer site.
Yeah. So let me just bring these guys up again. So the other one that you can do is emulate touch events, right? So that if I want to go and turn on touch events, and I'll pop over here and go back to google.com, helps if I spell it right. You'd think I'd be able to do that. I can sort of simulate the touch events. Now, they're not true touch events, but they're plenty close.
I think they're true touch events. You get the same touch start, touch move, and touch end as you would in a normal thing.
So good point.
So like a lot of sites that are designed for mobile, like this one, might not respond to clicks directly.
Okay.
Because they assume that.
Yeah, they're not expecting a click event. They're expecting only the touch event.
Right. It might be that there's a mobile user agent, and they just say, okay, there's only touches. So it's useful in that case. But of course, it's not multi-touch.
Right. So I can't go and do any multi-touch kind of stuff.
Right.
Unfortunately.
Right.
All right. So that's the emulation stuff that you've got within Chrome. The other one that's available is Chrome Remote Debugging.
Yeah.
And with the Chrome remote debugging, we've got there's a video and lots of good documentation on that. But let me, on my phone, I'm just going to go and open up Chrome so that I've got something that we can go have a look at here. And I will go to, now, before you do this, you need to have ADB installed. Now, ADB is the Android debugger, and it allows you to do some port forwarding and things like that. Once you've got ADB installed, which is not all that hard, it's a pretty easy process to step through. You need to plug your phone into your laptop via USB, and you need to turn on two things on your phone. In the settings menu for the phone, you need to enable debugging. So go into the debugging settings, turn that on. And then the second piece that you need to do is within Chrome, you need to turn on the remote debugging. So I've done that on this device, and now I need to start the debugging stuff.
Yeah, so
now,
generally the stuff on the device persists, at least the system-wide debugging does.
Yeah.
The Chrome one sometimes turns off for some reason.
Okay.
So you might have to turn that on.
All right.
But there's a bit of like one-time setup.
So
that hopefully you won't need to do all the time.
Yeah. Once that setup's done, it's pretty easy. I've actually created a little script to make my my debugging a little bit easier, because I don't like to remember ADB forward TCP:9222 local. It's just more than I like to remember. So I've just got a little script that I can do clank debug. So that starts my clank debugger.
So what that actually does is this debugger essentially, or this Chrome for Android, runs a server, basically. And it runs the Chrome DevTools protocol. And what this does, it sets up the port. It opens the port here to make that connectable from your desktop.
Okay. So now I've through the USB, I've opened a TCP port to the server on here.
It's actually a little more complicated.
Okay.
You'll see. Anyway, if you open this up.
So now I've opened it up, and sure enough, I see my list of inspectable pages. I can click on this.
So you'll see that it actually went to a front end that's on the web. The URL here is Chrome DevTools frontend.appspot.com.
Oh, right.
So it actually serves the front end from there.
Okay.
And points it to here.
Ah.
So
we've got
a little bit of indirection.
We've got a little bit of
But it works really well,
stuff.
So it's awesome.
Right, so now as I start looking at the content that's on here, I can actually start expanding these out and seeing what's going on in my particular page. So I can expand this out and say, hey, there's divs, there's an iframe. And as I start expanding these out, you can see that different parts of the page start to get highlighted.
And so you have full control, basically.
Exactly. It's
awesome.
Just like debugging on my desktop, right? Like if I'm debugging, I can go in, I can be like, oh, hey, I can change everything live. I've got all the same capabilities that I would have if I were debugging Chrome on my desktop. I can set CSS styles, I can set attributes, remove attributes, I can add and remove elements, all the stuff that I'm used to being able to do. In fact, I can even go in and use some of the auditing and profiling tools to be able to understand exactly where everything is.
Right. It's especially important for mobile.
Exactly. To understand how you're profiling, how your network requests are coming in. It's actually something really interesting. One of the projects I was working on, we found a bug that only happened when you were connected on 3G. So we were testing this. We were always on Wi-Fi, right? Because that's generally if you can go on a fast connection, worked great. We were like, all right, yeah. And a couple of hours before we were supposed to ship this thing, I was doing my last sanity checks and went, oh crap, it doesn't work with Wi-Fi turned off. And so sure enough, it was just this little thing where something wasn't coming in quite fast enough, and it was just sitting there forever.
Right.
And so we made a couple of minor corrections, but it was one of those things. So being able to go in and see the profiling tools, the timeline for how requests get made is a really useful tool to be able to have.
Right. So actually, that will be a network, right?
Right. Yeah. There's network.
Yeah. Timeline is also very useful.
So if I reload this page, sure enough, there's all the resources that are getting loaded for this particular image. And I can see how long this took. So like, the page DOM content loaded was fired here at this blue line, and here at this red line, the load event was fired.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Super useful.
Very useful.
Yeah, so this is running milestone 18 of Chrome. And so it's on par with M18.
Okay.
But now Chrome has moved a little forward.
Yeah, I think so. I'm running Chrome beta on this machine, and Chrome beta is 21,
Right,
so
we're at
stable
20.
will be 20.
Yeah. Cool.
So, all right. So with that, why don't we pop over and take a couple of the questions from the moderator queue?
Sounds good.
I will. I'll grab the first one. So the first question. Let me just reload this. Make sure we've got the latest stuff. And what's your opinion on using mobile frameworks such as jQuery Mobile?
Good question.
It is a good question. So I think my opinion, using stuff like that has its place. And I've used jQuery Mobile for a couple projects. I thought it was a neat sort of place to start and experiment with. It doesn't necessarily work for every single project, and it does provide a few headaches here and there if you want to do things that jQuery Mobile doesn't support or sort of falls outside the box. What's your view on it?
I kind of agree. I think it's great for sort of these apps that are very content-centric.
Okay, yep.
So you have like, hierarchical sets of views that are all kind of similar and maybe text-heavy.
I want to go look something up. I want to flow through something, something like that.
And
Okay.
you can break out of the mold
Yep.
with plugins. They
Right.
have a plugin framework. So, if you want to do something a little bit outside of that framework, it's fine. But if you're doing like a complex app with its own kind of UI, maybe it's like there's some drawing app or something where it's a lot of interaction that's not really common to the sorts of apps that it's designed for,
Yeah.
I would say don't use it.
Yeah.
And like look to something else. Maybe
Yeah.
look to a framework like Sencha
Okay.
or something like that, or roll your own, because ultimately you might need to
Yeah.
go there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want to
Sure.
read off the next question?
Okay, let's see. Any way to launch Chrome after clicking links in any apps on iPad? It launches Safari even after updating Gmail. Right. So basically, you can, as an iOS app developer, you can write an app that will check if Chrome is installed and launch Chrome instead of
Chrome
Safari.
instead. Okay.
That said, it's up to the app developer and not the user.
Okay.
So if I, the user, say, if I want Chrome to be launched every time any link opens,
Yeah.
I'm out of luck. iOS doesn't provide that sort of flexibility. So about Gmail specifically, they have their own agendas.
And they may hopefully, that's actually a good point. We'll go send an email to the Gmail team. But I know that the Google Plus team just updated their Google Plus app, and it now will open. If Chrome is installed, it'll open links in Chrome for Chrome on iOS if it's installed.
Neat.
Yeah.
Cool.
So it's going to be a matter of getting developers to go and start doing that. So if you have an app or use an app, go ask your developer to enable that feature. That would be a really nice thing to have.
Yeah, totally. All
Cool.
right, next question?
Yeah, next question.
All right. So there's a question about using a master key to secure saved passwords in Chrome for PC. So I think this is something about key chaining, probably.
What's the specific question say?
What about a master key to secure the saved passwords in Chrome for PC?
Huh. So I would say maybe if I'm not sure I quite understand the question, but if you've got if you can go provide a little bit more detail in there, we'll take a look at that this afternoon and try and put an answer in there if we can understand that.
There was one more.
All right, one more question. I think we'll take this as our last question and then wrap it up.
Yep. So workarounds to, this is not really mobile related, but I think we can probably talk a little bit about it.
Okay.
Workarounds to execute dynamically generated scripts in iframes in Manifest 2. So this is an app or extension question.
Yep. So I think with that, the one piece that I would say to go have a look at is the sandboxed iframe stuff. Because with sandboxed iframes, with Manifest version 2, they implement content security policy. Content security policy is a piece that helps to protect you from cross-site scripting and other security vulnerabilities. And it restricts some of the things that can happen. With a sandboxed iframe, you can do a lot of not so safe stuff, but it's sandboxed and can't get outside that sandbox generally.
So you can do eval in a sandboxed iframe?
You know, I can't remember the exact list of things, but I think you may be able to do that. So it's worth having a look at the sandboxed iframe. And the sandboxed iframe is actually a larger piece that doesn't just fit into Chrome apps and extensions, but is something that's coming to the web in general.
Right. And if you're doing it on the web in general,
yeah,
you can also set your own custom content security policy?
Absolutely, and you can modify that as well.
So I guess Manifest 2 sort of suggests that you're doing it in Chrome
that's a fair
apps
point.
or extensions.
Good point. All right.
All right, I think that's all the time we have. So
Cool.
Thanks, guys, for joining us.
Thank you very much, and we'll be doing these more regularly. We'd love to hear your feedback. Let us know either through the comments or anything like that. So with that, thanks very much, and we'll chat soon. Bye-bye.
See you.